One failure is a lesson for a second success. This is ice cream. It was around or something. It was kind of a proverb. Well, that's why I'm calling it that red one. I jotted that information down somewhere previously. I lost my notes. It was here in Ireland? Ireland, yes. Therefore, this individual is actually an American citizen. This is a story that I often talk about with investors. An individual who has previously experienced failure in that particular industry tends to have a significantly higher likelihood of success on the subsequent attempt. President Trump has experienced bankruptcy approximately 8 or possibly 5 times over the course of his career. So, well, that stupid person, if you're going to repeat the exact same town, there's nothing you can do about it. One way or another, that person doesn't repeat the same mistakes. So the person who made the mistake will win more and will not make the same mistake. In fact, the likelihood of failure significantly decreases. Well, just the other day, I had a conversation with Tesla Testa, a completely random investor. So at that time, I mentioned to you that an unexpected event occurs once every 5 years. So now I'm 47 years old. For example, that 8th, the Lehman shock or something similar. So what about the earthquake in eastern Japan? It's that corona, approximately 6 months or even a year ago, all something I never imagined suddenly happened. So the structure of society will completely change. It happens about once every 5 years or once every 10 years. So what lasted until yesterday will be tomorrow. It will continue, won't it? That means that's what young people think. Until I reached the age of 20, I would have lived through the present generation's Amazon corner experience. So I knew that rattle would change. For example, me, if it's a generation like that, the Showa era is coming, the Heisei era is coming, and the Reiwa era is coming. Since the bubble burst, there hasn't been such a significant shift. Heisei, among them, it was the 20s and 30s. There are moments when the social system resists sudden change. But if you repeatedly go through such experiences, unexpected things always happen. So even if something unexpected happens, it's better to be able to deal with it somehow. Because it's somewhere in that heart. So sometimes it indeed becomes quite challenging to make significant mistakes in such places. Therefore, experiencing more failures ultimately leads to greater insights, in my opinion. Thus, that when an acquaintance of mine eventually had a child, try your best not to let that child cry. I mentioned in some place that I aspire to raise him. In short, if you make that mistake or get injured, well, don't you cry when you bump it? So I think it's the type of way of thinking that I want to nurture happiness without letting them go through that kind of thing. I'm probably the opposite when it comes to raising children. I think it's about making you cry with anger. Because of that injury. This is dangerous because it will cause injury. I was yelled at for stepping on that scary old man's foot, and I was told that I shouldn't step on that scary old man's foot. Among them, by frequently making mistakes or being put into difficult situations more often, I think there are times when you will be able to judge to some extent whether you shouldn't do this or whether you can do this. So to sum it up, I'm definitely still walking on that individual's feet. This is an analogy. For example, that ordinary person, essentially, I live my life avoiding actions that would anger others. While I'm discussing in the media about making others angry, you do it with love. So if I go this far, I wonder if I'll get angry or not. The same goes for live performances. Therefore, by doing this, what might the viewers think? Do you think this guy is rude? Do you find it impressive? And where is the equilibrium? You won't know until you try. So recently, indeed, I got in the car of a broadcaster named Kazaoka-san and Dokuma-san. I angrily walked around my new car carrying a loud object. He doesn't get angry when I hit him, but he seems to get angry when I hit the car. So, a lot of things. He said he was trying. Currently, Tsuba-san's popular party returns triumphantly, targeting people or organizations. By executing precise and efficient activities, we will create a situation similar to Europe and the US, becoming a significant threat. I think it will be a fortune-telling. That tower with wings. Since I was campaigning, the police failed to stop it. If it were to be campaigning, it would be too much. Well, it's an election campaign, so if that police stop it, then that's the election campaign. That public authority interfered with it, because it turns out that some claim it's not good. Now that I'm a soldier, So if you yell at ordinary people's homes or ordinary people's offices, so that's obstruction of business, right? Well, if it turns out to be a rumor damage, well, you'll usually file a complaint with the police. Damage has been reported, because the police will deal with it. So something, even if he triumphantly returns without campaigning, he should probably end with the Buddha. Well, if you're arrested in a different way, I think it's going to be a lot tougher on music. On March 27th, Kohei Ito of the Keio team took a class in a private room for 1 million yen per year, so this was not an exception in the committee during his university days. If you look at Ito Yono, you can see that Ito Nakakodera and Marube graduated from the 5th generation, and from kindergarten to Keio's divorce, Keio Tomi was a divorced professor who spent 30 years looking for a job in Calphania due to lack of sleep. At the age of 58, after Heisei 30 years, only Western University students seem to have been influenced by people with eyesight, which goes against the number of researchers with 600 years of age per year. 1/8, this is that long. For instance, what are we discussing? The current president of Keio University. I'm sure I had a conversation with you once at Refok. Yes, but, well, the president of Kyoto University. You said that the tuition fees at that national university are too low, so you talked about raising them. Well, penitentiary universities have relatively high tuition fees, so if I remember correctly, when I go to Keio Medical School, it's a year. Maybe 10 million yen? So even with Keio students who pay such high tuition fees, the family national school is a month. It doesn't cost 1 million yen a year. As expected, there is not too much difference in treatment between the private sector and the public sector. I think he's probably saying let's balance that. However, talking about what society should be like, his position as a businessman is probably a different story. For example, Keio University believes that if tuition fees at other universities increase, Keio University's competitiveness will increase. So, private schools are basically research facilities with the money they earn, and they pay teachers. So, if you want to build a proper research facility or recruit talented people, you still need money. So let's leave that money aside to see if it's right to take it as tuition fees. University serves as a means of investigation. Take the tuition and get the degree, or collect money. So you should do your research properly. I think that's a way of thinking. Universities as research institutions are quite significant to me. Well, you should put some kind of money into it, I think. However, when I get to the point of contemplating if raising tuition fees is justified, it becomes difficult for talented people without money to go to university. So, as a result, all those rich bonkora went to university. The opportunity for that talented young person will be lost. Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to lose that kind of romance. So when Japanese people think of universities, they look at the United States, and American universities cost about 20 million yen a year. So they say that it's cheaper compared to the United States. But for the United States, there are numerous scholarships available. So when those Americans live locally and try to go to university, they sometimes don't cost that much money. If Japanese, Chinese, or foreigners want to attend, they will need to provide a donation of 20 million yen or 5 million yen. So which is it, university tuition fees in France or Europe? Sometimes it's just the same, so therefore, money should be poured into that research facility, but I am a faction that thinks it would be better to lower the tuition fees for students who go just to study that discipline. Hiroyuki's wife? When will I be your friend? I'm not mentioning it, so please ask them both. March 28th, weekly Women's Prime Sakura irradiation. Last year, the child who was born is now attending the same kindergarten and preparing for an early childhood class. Keio has 6,000 students in junior high with 1 grade level, and it likely begins in kindergarten. The process takes 16 years, and after experiencing it, I'm unsure about exams or job searching. The public Sakurai Shoten edition is a Ronin and goes to the University of Tokyo. In addition to law, I mentioned it in elementary school, so I am a commoner with 500,000 saxophones in science. I felt the disparity that various families couldn't keep up with at the age of 18. The difference between equality and fairness. I don't believe that many people would willingly agree with this sentiment. Perhaps in about a decade or so, I suppose there will be a slightly larger number of individuals who agree. To that university, going to a good university means, in reality, it doesn't have a significant correlation with that person's overall happiness. Maybe in about 10 years, it will become a little more visible. That's what I think. For example, I've been going to Cho University and the University of Center for 3 years in 1 year and 4 years in 1 year, which allows me to live joyfully in the present. Is it because I went to Cho University? So if this were Aoyama University, wouldn't that be the case? Wouldn't that have happened at Meiji University? It is likely quite nearly the same. therefore, at the end of the day, that university, based on what I learned at that university, there aren't many things that are really useful in living. Within the pages of that university book, I'll be teaching that particular English class, so even at Cho University, the content of classes in English is almost the same, no matter how long the major card is. Well, I guess I'll be able to read that long English sentence. Well, I'm in the psychology department. Even if I say I'm going to teach a psychology class, after all, it doesn't change that much at any university. So, a super talented person enters a super talented seminar. He said it was a pattern of achieving tremendous results and becoming scholars. Well, before that, I think the University of Tokyo would be better. However, about 99% of university students teaching at university, I won't be a member. That's right. In short, if you want to become a professor or a martyr, well, I need to get along well with the professor at that university, join that faction, and bring it to me. If you don't aim for it, the content of classes at another junior high school doesn't change that much. Well, in the past, it was said that you would get a job based on the name of that university. Nowadays, the correlation between the name of the university and employment has decreased considerably. In short, that rich guy who invested a certain amount of money in cram school and went to a famous university. I didn't go to that famous university, but I played some kind of sports and I thought he was someone with high communication skills. It's like I've never heard of anything like that before, and I'm studying at Nihon University. There are quite a few people who hire Solsi who say they have played sports. There is also something like that. That educational background is not that important. So I'll explain that one thing because it leads to misunderstanding. There is an educational background filter. So as far as I'm concerned, I went to Cho University. So I mentioned that there wouldn't be any changes at Aoyama or Meiji University. These are institutions of the same rank. Just in the world. Like, I've never heard of it. There is an F-rank university. Unfortunately, in the case of F-rank universities, the documents are cut first. I've never heard of it, so I'll cut it off. I think he can open a big lighthouse or something. That Taito Banka University, that big university of Tokyo is saying in front of us. So that's why I'm uncertain about which university I'll attend, or perhaps I'm in that widely recognized position. If you go up, it won't be cut by the educational background filter. Beyond that point, no changes will occur regardless of where you proceed. It's just, there is also an educational background filter, to some extent, that it's just a popular company. So, for popular companies, then number 8, for example, you desire to be a part of Nintendo. So let's say Nintendo has an educational background filter. So I happen to be going to Keio University of Technology, so clear the educational background filter. So if you want to include Nintendo, I can hardly get in. So ultimately, even if you exceed that educational background filter, I think there will probably be thousands of people applying to Nintendo every year. So if you're going to pass at 1,000th of that, you're not going to pass. So that happens to be an educational opportunity. Even if you say you went to a university that passed the filter, you almost never get accepted because of that. So lately, I've realized that which university I go to doesn't actually have that much of an impact. I'm thinking, so what activities do adults who live happily ever after engage in? So now that university has an educational background filter, how do I get into Nintendo, a large company? I talked about something like, I'm employed as an office worker, and the percentage of people who look happy, I'm self-isolating. The percentage of people who look happy is completely different. So at the conclusion, for office workers, what has been decided? You definitely have to do it. At the appointed time, be sure to get up and get on the train. I must attend work. You have to do it every morning, 5 days a week. But self-employed people are allowed to say that it's not troublesome. So in short, that having summer vacation means you must complete summer homework, but it's still summer to enjoy. Don't you do your homework on vacation? So on that weekday when school classes are held, if you ask me which one is more fun during summer vacation, everyone says summer vacation is fun after all. School classes are boys' part. I think there are people who say that. So for many people, it can be more enjoyable to create your own timetable and engage in activities yourself. So for those self-employed people, every day is summer vacation. However, it's really summer vacation, so I'm lazing around without doing anything. Sometimes that deadline comes and it's like I have to stay up all night over and over again. However, I guess which one is more fun? Even though I'm lazy, it's fun. Subsequently, well, they say it's because there's that garage to join a company. Because there's this concept called national insurance. So even if it's not that big company, there is some kind of insurance. So that you will be sick, well, it seems I'm somewhat unwell because I can't work anymore. If it becomes necessary to join a major corporation, saving money from the beginning, I can live on welfare so I can live without working. I don't think you have to have a heart. For example, I joined a large company and got sick. Therefore, considering it's a large company, I assume that insurance would be included. There are people who are usually kicked out. In reality, not everyone in this world is that kind-hearted. I thought I was going to join a large company, but for some reason I ended up seconded to a subsidiary and my benefits were lost. So when I thought that I could stay there even if I got sick, I found myself maintaining it, and there was a little bit of bullying in it. Even just looking at the office makes me feel nauseous and feel like I can't go to the office. One way or another, I'm not in a situation where that woman is going to benefit me that much. I think it would be nice if it was a time when prisoner employment really existed in the Showa era. Nowadays, companies are highly focused on finding ways to eliminate them. Thus, I don't believe it's a time where lifelong peace is guaranteed just by joining such a company. So that big company, at the age of 20, I joined a major corporation. 45 years later, when it comes to whether to remain a large company, but the people who joined Yamaichi Securities, I thought I'd been at Yamaichi Shoten for 40 years. Suddenly, the president appeared on the TV news like this, and I thought the president of my house was there. I was told that I would go bankrupt today. Employees watch on TV. Sometimes I'm surprised to learn about it. So that I don't think we'll know if that big company will still exist in 40 years. Now, an airline known as JAL, yes, I believe you're familiar with it. That's 10... It went bankrupt once about 5 years ago. I was that disgusting shareholder, so I became a piece of paper. I thought there was no way that airline would go bankrupt. At that time, I was called JAL and ANA, and before that, I was called JAS. In short, in Japan, to go outside, there are not many people going by boat. So you'll take an airline, you'll take a plane. So as long as we proceed typically, Japanese people go overseas or foreigners come here. Because we're going to use a plane, the airline company, I didn't think bankruptcy was a possibility. So, well, that facility was utterly ruined by the visiting management team. So there is a demand for that, but witnessing the management's downfall due to their terrible performance is what I want. So that's how it feels. There is a decent demand and plenty of jobs available, but companies are still going bankrupt. Well then, I was creating a fax. People who already make faxes are proficient. No one uses fax, so it went out of business. Hanko, it's a shop, and no one uses stamps anymore. That's why I still know it's going to collapse. There are a lot of people on that plane, but JAL's management was terrible, so it looks like it's going to go bankrupt. No, there are also customers and those who have given their freedom. Sometimes it seems like it won't collapse, so that big company... What it means to last forever is... I think it's better not to think too much about that. A little while ago, there was a time when travel agencies were very popular. Then brands like Bicycle, JTB, or Kinki Nippon Tourist. So that kind of travel agency, in the past, when it came to going on a trip, it was common for people to buy cheap package tours at travel agencies. Now I buy cheap air tickets myself. So it's become commonplace to stay at Airbnb or something. That's why the mid-tier travel agency goes bankrupt. I started taking Vanman with me about 5 years ago, and I think my company has subsided lately. There are times like this, so I don't think we're in an era where you're so safe just because you joined that big company.